Maybe the players in this game of life that we experience, maybe all the things that suck don't suck because life hates you and the universe is out to get you, but maybe it's just that you wanted to have something challenging and interesting and not easy. Maybe it's bragging rights from player to player, right? Oh, hey, I beat that one level, the cancer level. Yeah, I beat that twice.
It does seem like there's people playing life on the easy mode. They're like, oh, you're running into hard times. Well, can't you just take some money out of savings? And it's like, savings? What's that? Like,
how quaint. I remember having savings.
It could be that our brains just trick us into not seeing the glitches, or our brains are basically the processing unit that is tailor fit to each, I don't know, sim or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. If you're like, hey, wait a second, things are different. But then everybody's like, no, they're not. It's always been this way. And pretty soon you think, oh, I must be crazy. And that's part of the programming too, to fix that. Right, everybody, welcome to another fan-freaking-tastic kitchen sink freaking microscopy. I'm Eric Rosenblatt, and we would freaking love it if you would like and share this video and freaking subscribe to the channel, do all that stuff. Yeah, that's what freaks do.
Are we curbing our freaking language? I'm Casey Rosh freaking Furt, and and we write our own freaking music, and you can freak out to the end of the episode and check it out there, timestamp in this general vicinity, and hang out and wait around for it a couple months, and it'll be out on Spotify and iTunes. That reminds me, it's time to upload the next album.
Oh yeah,
I keep up with that. Well, anyway, what do you want to talk about on this fine, dark, cold evening?
Yeah. Ooh, man, it's almost a full moon too. It'd be nice to talk about something witchy, but I figured we'd talk about something, well, in a way, it's kind of metaphysical, like theoretical. It's kind of come up a couple times when in our previous episodes briefly, but we never really like deep dove into it. And
deep divin,
yeah, fucking English. Oh wait, sorry, freaking English. Got to keep the ad revenue going. So I thought we should talk about simulation theory. I don't know. Do you know much about that?
Not like I haven't like looked into it or anything, but the concept sounds pretty, self-explanatory, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
the idea that we're living in a simulation.
Yeah, somewhere between the Matrix and the Truman Show, or
yeah,
whatever it might be.
Yeah, and the thing that it almost kind of like I said, the reason I say it's kind of metaphysical is because there's no way to prove or disprove it, right? Like God or something. Like how would you ever know? We're contained within this universe. We can't step outside of it and see how the machinery works. And the kind of the gist of the theory goes that based on the evolution of our technology, the ability to simulate things, right? To create computer generated worlds or whatever, how far it's progressed in just with our limited technology and understanding that we have now. It's getting close to being indistinguishable from reality. And so the idea is that if you push that maybe another 100 or 200 years into the future, it totally will be indistinguishable. Like, there will be no way to know that you're actually in a simulation. Maybe there's brain connections, neural connections and stuff. Like, it might even be tactile, like feel real and stuff. And so if we could do that, how would we know? Like, I mean, I guess it kind of follows that it's possible that it's been done before, and that's where we are now.
Hey, every program glitches at some point, though. You'd think there would be like really weird visual phenomena, like
well, perhaps, and that could explain things like the Mandela effect or the glitch in the matrix stuff that's out there. But you know, maybe if there's a glitch with something so vast and complex, it's something very minute, like a quantum level glitch that we can't detect. We barely notice it. You know, so I don't know that there'd be some kind of macro level glitch where something that we could really notice. Maybe. I mean, it just depends on the system running the simulation, I guess.
huh. Yeah. I mean, if all this was a game, I don't think I'd be scoring very high.
Well, I don't know that I wouldn't necessarily say it's kind of built around the premise of it being a game, but more like Total Recall, where we build a world. Maybe the world before was very terrible, right? And we could be completely twisted and cancerous and something. I don't know. Who knows what? Like, all kinds of issues in the previous world. So we built a world that was like a utopia, or a place where we could explore different things we might not be able to. What if the beings that created the simulation machine didn't have the ability to go anywhere? I don't know. I mean,
Hmm.
the possibilities are really endless, and the more you dig into it, the more well, kind of freaked out you get. It's sort of like when you look out into the stars and contemplate the scale of the universe, like the infinite scale and how big it is and how small you are. It's like, oh shit. Like, it's a lot to think about.
So what if hmm, the entity or entities that are controlling this supposed theoretical simulation, what if they are scoring us, and when our time in this simulation ends, based on our life score, we enter a new simulation that we, within this simulation, colloquially refer to as heaven or hell, or reincarnation? Like, maybe they're like, they need another go at it. Or,
you have multiple. Well, it's like how many lives do you have in a game, you know, or save states or something. You just come back again and try it over and over. There was that movie with Tom Cruise, Edge of Tomorrow, which is kind of like that.
Well, I've always wondered if the concept of heaven and hell was just repeating your life, but it's either shittier or slightly better, you know, like.
Yeah, like that's kind of an Edge of Tomorrow sort of thing. That or like a video game sort of thing where you get killed or make a mistake, and then you go back again and you go back through the level again, knowing a little bit more, and you try it again and again and again and keep failing until you improve yourself. And honestly, if I were to develop a system like that, like, I think that's kind of the direction that one would want to go in. Like, you want to improve your understanding of the universe. What better way than to have that kind of system where You test out your ideas. If they fail, you start over again, but you carry with you a little bit of knowledge, and you go forward again and you try the same thing, like, attempting the jump again, or the boss battle or something, right? Until you get it right. And now you've moved on further. Um, and perhaps maybe we don't have access to the collective knowledge of all the players, but maybe something outside of it does. So perhaps we're just the tools used to investigate answers or something like that.
What if suicide is so looked down upon because we've been conditioned? You see, if the simulation controllers don't decide when we perish, it isn't programmed in there. Maybe suicide's the only way out of the simulation.
It could be, or at least it ruins the experiment, right? Because you weren't able to follow through with the plans, I guess.
Yeah.
So well, that's a really good point. And I don't know.
I've been thinking, like, for the last 13 years, um, since I beat cancer, life has just been a shit show. Like, nothing but uphill battles. Every time I think I get ahead, everything just comes crashing down, and over again on repeat, and sometimes I wonder if I was supposed to die, or maybe I did die and I'm just in a shittier simulation now.
Well, no, actually, that's a really interesting thought. Well, and maybe because I think a lot of people deal from time to time with that scenario, right? It used to be every time I put a little bit of money in savings, then all of a sudden there'd be some kind of expensive thing that took all that money away. And that's kind of, it's almost like it's by design, like challenging you to figure out ways around those things. That it is kind of like a game. And honestly, I think a good way to deal with life is looking at life as if it were a game. Maybe not one where you could be so cavalier with your own existence that you would end it. But as far as like dealing with all of the trials and tribulations that we deal with, maybe see it the same way gamers see a game they're playing. Like, okay, yeah, you get frustrated because you fail, but you keep at it, keep trying, and get better at it. And honestly, that's the thing. I highly encourage people to watch Edge of Tomorrow. There's another name for it. I think maybe it was the UK release. It had a different name, but it's a fun movie, but it's also very thought provoking. But it does kind of go along those lines of, you're faced with these challenges and have to attempt to overcome them, and more curveballs are thrown. The further you get, more difficult it gets, which does kind of feel a lot like a video game, right?
Yeah.
When you start out, everything's easy. All the enemies, all the challenges, they're super simple and obvious. The further you get into it, it gets more complex and more difficult, to the point where some are like nearly impossible. And maybe life works kind of like that. And the fact that things kind of tend in that direction does lend a little bit of credence to the whole simulation theory as being like, I guess, an exploratory experiment or something like that. I mean, the Total Recall thing, maybe whatever species created the simulation system, their lives are so boring that they're like, hey, we want to create something exciting. I don't want to just be like an accountant. I want to be like a spy, or something like that, and have all kinds of exciting things happen. And so maybe that's it. Maybe the players in this game of life that we experience, maybe all the things that suck don't suck because life hates you and the universe is out to get you, but maybe it's just that you wanted to have something challenging and interesting and not easy. Maybe it's bragging rights from player to player, right? Oh, hey, I beat that one level, the cancer level. Yeah, I beat that twice. Like that kind of thing.
Come on, don't bullshit me. Yeah, no, like it does seem like there's people playing life on the easy mode. They're like, oh, you're running into hard times. Well, can't you just take some money out of savings? And it's like, savings? What's that? Like,
how quaint. I remember having savings. Yeah, well, but that's the thing, that perhaps some of these other players may even be NPCs too. They're the ones in there to make the challenge even more interesting or more infuriating, right? Like that. Or perhaps there are people who in through the past they've gotten really good at it, right? So to them the game is really easy, and maybe you're just starting out or something like that. So it's okay. I think. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's a really interesting thought experiment. And I got a lot of thoughts there. But something that I would wonder, I don't know, like kind of in line with simulation theory. What if the universe isn't a simulation, but like a God dream? What if there's a being out there just imagining us and like dreaming this whole existence, and all of us are just somebody's fantasy that's playing out in their head?
I can't imagine that. I mean, I can't imagine a God, so maybe I can't imagine this, but I can't imagine that a dream, even a God dream, would create sentient beings with independent thought.
Well, here's the thing: we're the simple, the imaginary thing. So of course we have simple dreams. So to correlate what's possible, or to imagine what's possible based on what's possible for us, and assume that it's the same for somebody else, perhaps. And I'm saying like a god as in like some kind of supercomputer or ultra machine or whatever, who knows, something outside the universe. um it
There
I
was a great philosopher, Popeye, who said, I think, therefore I am.
I thought that was I am what I am. And then I was gonna say, oh, I thought that was Descartes. And you were gonna say it's so
It's
easy
so
to
easy to get those two dudes mixed up.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, have to throw in Red Dwarf. Well, and there's a lot of people out there that are like, well, of course it, of course it's not a simulation, right? Because I can like pinch myself or observe certain things that clearly indicate that it's not a simulation. But that isn't evidence that it's not. Like, there's actually no way to test whether this is reality or not. I would challenge anybody to come up with a proper test to find out whether we're in a simulation or not. Like, there's no way, because we're dealing with the structure of the system. And if the system is simulated, then it can feed any information back to us that it wants. Like, we can't get outside the universe and see what's going on out there. All we can do is look from our own selves outward and develop our crappy devices and sensors and things like that to test a few things and hypothesize and sit down with a beer fueled KSM episode and talk about it. But like, what proof, what test could be performed that could definitively show if this was reality or if this was a simulation?
Yeah. I wonder if the key is the brain, because the brain is capable of deceiving us readily.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So earlier in the show, I mentioned like glitches, like noticeable glitches, but our eyes, let's just take our vision. We've got blind spots that our brain fills in the gap.
Yeah.
You could be hung upside down for days, and all of a sudden your brain will just flip everything upside down so it's right side up.
Yeah, in fact, a YouTuber actually tested that with these upside down glasses, and yep, that's exactly how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
So
kind of.
it could be that our brains just trick us into not seeing the glitches, or our brains are basically the processing unit that is tailor fit to each, I don't know, sim or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Well, and maybe if I were to design a system like that, right, and knew that maybe there could be some flaws in the programming or whatever, I would incorporate a system that would erase evidence of any errors after the fact, because our memory is the way that we know that, right? Like if something used to be this way and now it's that way, memory is the key. So all you have to do is change a few variables in the players, and they don't remember or barely remember what came before. You've just like, okay, whatever. It's kind of like Men in Black. Hey, look at this pen, and poof, now you've forgotten everything. Like, how did I get here?
He's gone. You just erased him from existence.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't know. Maybe the odd person notices things, but they're so odd and so infrequent that somebody might remember. With so much data, it's possible that a few things could be overlooked occasionally. But with enough people, basically, if you're like, hey, wait a second, things are different. But then everybody's like, no, they're not. It's always been this way. And pretty soon you think, oh, I must be crazy. And that's part of the programming too, to fix that, right? You're like, well, I guess I must be misremembering things. I think.
I wonder if miscommunications between men and women are all just like somebody fucking with us on the outside of the simulation. Let's make him hear this when she actually said that, or
it's like the people running the server or whatever. Or yeah, if this is like a game of The Sims, right? People clicking things and making us do stuff, throwing stuff our way that we have to deal with and react to for their own amusement. It is possible that the simulation is running not for us to explore, but maybe just so somebody can get a good laugh.
That would be cruel.
Yes, it would be. But
that's life, though.
Well, that's true. Yeah. And maybe that's what we want as we go into the game. People don't play video games because they're super easy. I mean, you use God mode when you've played everything you can play and you just want to have some fun. But the challenge of the overcoming adversity and beating the bosses and one-upping your other players, your fellow players, like that's what people live for. Like if it wasn't difficult, it wouldn't be fun. It would get boring really fast. So maybe our ourselves in the outside world of the simulation are living in a really boring place, and they just want some excitement. They want something that's really difficult and challenging.
I can't think of a time in my life where I had like a bunch of hardship and I was like, this is a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying having cancer. Yeah.
No, but you wouldn't, because you could potentially be like, I guess, an avatar or an extension of your real self. Or maybe you're the NPC that your real self is kind of controlling, like in The Sims, right? There's somebody else that has a completely different train of thought who's watching things play out. They're like, oh, I'm gonna drag and drop this cancer thing onto my Casey player, and oh wait, he beat it, and he's like, hoorah! And you're like, oh, I'm gonna
Yeah, that
bring a
was too easy. Let's make it a little
dark,
harder.
yeah, throw another dark cloud in there, you know.
This time, let's kill him.
Yeah, yeah. No, because you wouldn't want that because that's too easy.
Wait a minute. I did die. Sort of.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Kinda. Like every fast reproducing cell in my body was obliterated at the same time. My blood was water.
Huh.
Effectively. And I mean, they call it my birthday. Like at the time of this recording, we're 11 days away from my 13th birthday.
Oh shit! Well, happy birthday in advance.
I'm simultaneously becoming a teenager and over the hill this year.
That's quite a feat. But see, achievement unlocked. Now you can use that cool skin with like the armor plating and stuff like that.
I hope things start going my way. But I mean, maybe that was a turning point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was. It
Yeah.
definitely was. I'm not the same person at all.
No. Well, but you kind of are. Like
I'm kind of.
I knew you before that, and you're still recognizable as the same person, and we can still laugh about the same kind of stuff. But yeah, I think you're next level at that. Yeah, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more laid back. I'm more enlightened, and I'm also more scarred and a little more jaded.
Mm-hmm.
It's a weird mix, but I mean, I don't know, just things feel different. Things feel, I don't know.
What if like you moved over to a different server?
Could be.
Yeah, man. I mean, I don't know one way or the other, but it is really an interesting thought experiment. And it's also kind of a way, like a non-religious way to cope with the uncertainty of life. Just assuming like, well, maybe this is some kind of video game. Like it does change perception a lot. Like it does basically at that point, it no longer becomes personal and it becomes kind of like a challenge, I guess. I don't know. I mean, the more, for me, it did, at least, digging into that. Well, at the same time, it's kind of HP Lovecraftian, kind of where you start questioning everything and like things get really dark. But yeah, kind of beer you got there?
Oh, the coconut porter. But I had a Diet Dr. Pepper freeze and explode inside the mini fridge, so I'm just wiping it off.
Oh man,
it's all over me. Jesus. Yeah, I mean, at least it's diet, so it's not sticky.
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the interesting thing is that, well, let's just say this is a simulation. This is all like the Matrix, right? And okay, wait, let's see. Assuming this is a simulation, it's kind of like this whole dream within a dream thing. Like we're creating our own systems for simulation, like AI and gaming and 3D headsets and stuff like that are getting better and better by the day. And it is really, really difficult. Like it used to be very obvious. Oh yeah, that's CG, right? Oh, that's a computer generated voice. It was really obvious, but now it's getting more difficult. Like I really have to concentrate, like and look for little nuances, things that don't add up. And so that's the thing. It's like in 100 years from now, I don't think anybody who's playing a video game with like their, I don't know, 2200 version of the Oculus or something like that, is going to be able to differentiate between the simulation and reality. And so it's like if we live in a simulation, we've created a simulation inside the simulation. And then that begs the question, if we've done that, how many layers above us or below us are there?
But how could a system like that be operating for tens of thousands of years? You know, why would you even start it at, you know, such a rudimentary level as like the Australopithecus era, where everyone's just using some like crude tools and just trying to survive every day. And
but that we can't prove that really happened. All we've done is unearthed some stuff that points us in that direction and suggests that that's how things are, right? Well, the past is suggested.
No, it's not though, because like we don't have like mating cycles where people are always born at the same time and scheduled out every year. Like there's a bunch of overlap, and it's always been that way. So like going back through history, there's always been somebody who was there to see something.
Well, no, but the question is, did you personally see it? So how do you know that it hasn't been fed to you? Like that's a serious question. Like what test could you perform to prove that it has or has not been fed to you?
What would be the point even? Like why not just have the Adam and Eve theory? Like, oh, we're only 6,000 years old. Like why go to the trouble to create such a complex history that's like billions of years old and still have mysteries within that, like
for purposes of exploration or whatever? It's like backstories in video games and stuff,
side quest.
So yeah, and perhaps it is possible that this game or the simulation has been running a very long time and a lot has been built over the years. So perhaps the simulation started with some plants or some small organisms and stuff, and you know, like the game of life or something. Like, oh, let's see what happens, and then they keep expanding and adding. There's patches, there's new modules that people are adding to it, and then pretty soon it's a very rich universe.
Maybe a player poses a question and the developers are like, that's a good idea, let's write that in.
Yeah,
and let them discover it.
yeah, exactly. Well, totally. And that, again, if you had a very boring existence, you'd want to create an experience that had limitless explorative possibilities. You don't want it to get boring. Perhaps it's possible that the beings behind all of it have infinite lives, right? Maybe they don't die. Maybe that's why they created this, because basically they lived so long and learned so much, and they're just like, you know, I'm really bored, let's do something interesting. And then someone's like, well, why don't we do this thing?
As a programmer, you know, hobbyist or not, like if you find a bug, you want to fix it, right?
Yeah.
So now I'm thinking, like, if you could just Mandela effect things that you didn't like or whatever, wouldn't the human body be like perfectly designed? Which it is not. as much as Bible thumpers would have you think. Like there are all kinds of anatomical issues that we know about. For one thing, the blind spot in the retina that I mentioned.
Yeah.
Like why not just work that kink out and make everyone not remember it ever existed? You know?
Well, it's possible that things are too complex to catch every little tiny thing. And I wouldn't say
But
necessarily
we all
the
know
Mandela.
about it. Like, so the developers know about it.
Well, yeah, and I wouldn't say necessarily the Mandela effect is evidence of anything. I mean, it could just be some kind of psychological mumbo jumbo going on. So
That was a good episode we did, by the way.
it was, yeah, that was really, really good. It's up there if Casey remembers to put the thing up there.
I probably won't.
Yeah, if not, you can go to the KSM channel and look it up. But as far as like designing perfect beings that are without flaws, well, that would defeat the purpose. It's like starting a video game you've never played and typing the God mode cheat code. Like you want a fallible player, like a player that can take damage and die and fail and is not able to just breeze through, just no clip through the walls or something like that. You don't want that. That sucks. That's no fun, especially if there's a bunch of other players who you're competing against. And I don't want to necessarily focus too much on the game idea. I think it's a really interesting thing, but I don't think that if the universe is a simulation, if our existence is a simulation, I don't think it's like a game. It's more like trying to create either a world that you can't have or trying to challenge yourself to explore and get better, right? Like learn some things, perhaps.
Or we're just lab rats.
Well, yeah. It could be that it's like The Sims. We're just a bunch of NPCs going through the motions. It could be possible.
Huh.
But that's the thing. It's like, how would you test for that? Like, what possible
break your programming?
Yeah, I guess that would work. But then again, what if that's part of the simulation? that is possible to do that? Yeah. It's like you can never. Well, that's kind of why I equated it to, is there a God or something? Like you can't prove or disprove. There's absolutely no way to step outside and look from the outside in. We're always looking from the inside out. And that's kind of a scary thought. Yeah.
I mean, our world operates on certain physical laws, and and our understanding is always evolving of this, and there's quantum level things that we don't yet fully understand, but I mean, all that stuff doesn't really translate directly to the things that we perceive on a day-to-day anyway.
True.
And I feel like there's people who believe in miracles and stuff, but there's always some kind of scientific explanation. And even if we don't fully understand it, like we can reason how it could be a possibility. I
wouldn't say always, but mostly, yeah.
Yeah.
So in general, that's how it plays out. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I don't know. I feel like if this were a simulation, wouldn't we just see miracles on the regular, and just kind of like, why wouldn't they leave that in as just like a thing, right? Why build in skepticism? Why build in um such hard fast rules and then stick to them, you know?
Well, that's how the program would be written, right? The algorithms are set. Here's the rules of the game. This is how things function. Um, Maybe occasionally some like baller level player could figure out like some special move they could do, but in general, you're you're confined to the structure that you exist in. Um,
What about dreams? Like,
that's part of the program too.
You can
That's the thing.
fly in your dreams, but you can't in what we call reality, right?
Well,
So why
yeah.
not? If
Well,
it's totally possible if it's a simulation.
it is, but it's still those things. It's kind of like saying, well, what about the complexity of plants and animals? That's obviously proof of God. Well, no, it isn't. Um, it's just simply complexity that we don't understand. Um, I like. I would ask, like, what test could be performed to definitively prove that we are or are not in a simulation? Like, how could we test for that?
What would be the point of a dream?
Um, who knows? I mean, I didn't program it.
I mean, if I'm thinking like a programmer, I, why would I why would I bother to do something so abstract and so random and so unpredictable and
Well, we perceive it,
fantastical and
sure, but we perceive it as abstract with in the world we know. What if that's a normal thing to the people outside the system? So they're like, well, yeah, of course you dream. So we're going to program that in. So everybody dreams. They have their dream cycles and these things happen. Um, I don't think it's that unreasonable to for anything like that to be programmed into the system.
maybe they're glimpses of the real world.
And there are people who think and people who think that. The same thing with certain psychedelics. Like LSD, DMT, DXM, things like that, like
DMX.
DMX.
What?
Yeah.
Rest
I
in
mean,
peace.
sure. And it may be possible that the people who developed this system did incorporate kind of like an out, like a secret hidden out in some kind of innocuous thing. Like they're like, okay, who the hell is going to eat rye fungus? Nobody's going to eat that. So that's the little like the little hidden secret that you can use to get your way out if you want to. And of course the NPCs found it and they're like, oh man, oh, like,
welcome to Unimatrix Zero.
yeah. Well, I think having an escape route would make sense. Maybe multiple escape routes. So perhaps all these weird things that people experience might be actual reality. And then you come back to the simulation. If you know the passcode or what to do when you get to that point, then you could actually wake up or take off your goggles or unhook yourself or something like that.
Head to the recuperation lounge.
The recuperation lounge. Oh man.
A bunch of twunks.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, ultimately, it is kind of like the God question or the flying spaghetti monster or fairies or dragons or whatever. It's like you can't necessarily prove it, but
True. Well, you can't prove it or disprove it. There's no test to do that. There's no way. Like, because
I mean,
the only tools we have exist in this universe.
I would kind of argue that you can't disprove anything, can't like prove a negative, but
Well, you could
it certainly
disprove.
can't prove it.
Yeah, there's certainly, yeah, things like God or whatever, or the simulation theory. I don't think there's a way to prove or disprove it, short of maybe you go all the way to the outer reaches of the universe and you like step outside of it and you're like, oh, okay, that's what's out there.
Yeah.
And there's like God and some supercomputer that runs everything. And he's like, whoa, you're not supposed to see this, but go back there. I don't know.
But I mean, in the aspect of disproving things, like it always comes down to, well, maybe we just don't know yet, right?
Yeah.
Like 200-300 years ago, if you said to somebody like we could build a contraption that would allow us to fly, they'd be like, no, you can't prove it. And you'd be like, well, I can't. And that's just the sign of the times. Like you wouldn't be able to with the given technology at your hands, but
True.
eventually it might become a reality. And like maybe dreams are telling us that we are capable of flight. We just haven't unlocked it.
Well, yeah, dreams are actually a great way to explore things without fear of injury or death. Yeah.
Nothing's impossible.
Well, not in dreams, they're not. Oh man, this is
Well, I don't think I want to wake up.
I feel like this is going to end up being a two-parter, because there's kind of a lot of stuff to talk about in this regard.
Yeah, it's a brain bender.
Well, yeah, especially when you go into the Inception level, like how many layers of simulation do we exist in?
I just watched that movie a little while back. I figured it was time I sat down and watched it. Mentioned it on the show so many times.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's interesting. I mean, that's more about dreams than simulations, but it's pretty. It's got a lot of parallels.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the whole layers thing, like
and like making like the architects or whatever, like making it realistic enough or believable, which is weird because dreams are like, if you're aware of your dream in the moment, like I'm able to do that, not necessarily control them so much, at least not often, but if you're aware of your dream in the moment, it's always abstract. Like what we recall later, we paint with a more realistic image.
well,
But
like you said, like our brains fill in the blanks.
yeah,
In the absence of information, we take plausible pieces, puzzle pieces, and stick them in there.
yeah.
Another good movie would be Being John Malkovich. Kind of not quite Inception, but similar. Especially when John Malkovich goes into the doorway that leads into his own brain. it's a quirky movie, but the thing is, like,
How much pot were they smoking when they came
oh
up?
jeez, probably a lot. uh, good, like, but it's a thought-provoking thing. The simulation theory is one of those thought-provoking things. Like, I think it's an important question to ask. It's a question that might lead us to the answers of like where we are in the universe and why we're here, like make sense of things, especially when nothing seems to make sense. So, and you know, maybe at the end of that quest, we find that in fact, the answer is nothing makes sense. That's the answer to the question. And our struggle to put things in boxes and make them make sense is exactly why we struggle. Okay, I'm starting to go in these layers thing.
That's an interesting thought. Yeah. Is there any aspect of it we haven't really touched on? I mean, I haven't really looked into it, so I don't know.
What, simulation theory?
Yeah.
I mean, we kind of covered like the basics of it. It is sort of an open-ended kind of thing because again, there's no way to know. So it's all speculation. But I think it's speculation worthy of people's attention. It's something we should spend some time thinking about. I actually think it's a lot more possible than it would at first seem.
What? Well, what if my idea about suicide is the actual way out of like fully out? Like psychedelics might give you a peak, but you come back, right?
Mm-hmm.
But suicide, you never come back, right? So what if that's the way out of the simulation? And that is the proof that it does in fact not really exist. But since you are out of the simulation now, like, I don't know, maybe you're put under arrest or whatever, or like, what if there's a way? What if we send in a mole? Say, hey, go kill yourself and then find a way to become a programmer in the simulation and tell us how to get out. You know, like,
is that like a flatliners kind of thing?
Maybe that's what like those Jim Jones guys were trying to do, is like get everyone out of the simulation.
Yeah. Well, but then how do you carry that information back to everybody else?
Demonetized.
Yeah. I don't want to recommend killing yourself, because the key here is we don't know. So I mean, if this is all we have, yeah. if this is all we have, like, yeah, you probably it's a big risk to end it all for the sake of an experiment. Maybe if somebody ballsy enough wants to do it, but then again, how would you convey a message to people within the system? Let's say you knifed yourself or shot yourself in the head or something, and like you woke up pulling wires and cables off of you and you're like, oh, I knew it was a simulation. Okay, well, how do you tell the other people in the simulation that that's how it is? And then
like I said, you have to find a way to become one of the programmers.
True, but then how do you convince them? Because we've programmed the system has been programmed to such a way that people are very skeptical. Like if there's a giant face of God talking to you in the clouds, you're going to be like, oh man, it must be going crazy.
Well, how much of the earth is convinced that God is real and they've never seen a shred of evidence? How hard would it really be to plant an idea like, hey, you're all in a simulation, you know? This is the word of God.
Okay, well, that's true. But how do you convince people like you and I? Because if I saw God talking to me, I would be thinking, I must be tripping. Like, there is no way that is actually God talking to me.
Well, here's how you and I would be convinced if that actually worked, right? If somebody got out, somebody was able to plant the message,
Mhm.
and enough people were like, I believe in this, and then they kill themselves, and then like all of a sudden there's like a massive amount of people who could form a coup and just jump in and be like, just shut down the program and be like, you've been duped.
You've been crittered.
Yeah. So that's, I mean, barring the fact that maybe nobody's thought of that, that's to me kind of proof that it's not a simulation, because I feel like there would have been, I mean, the very fact that people think that it could be a simulation almost begs the question, like, why haven't we found a way to put an end to it then? You know?
Well, maybe we have, but that's already been accounted for. Perhaps.
Yeah, maybe.
It,
Maybe we're the suckers that didn't get out in time and they erased our memories. Or...
Well, and then the very scary question comes up, like maybe we're just NPCs. Maybe we're not real people hooked up to some kind of simulation machine. Maybe we're just part of the simulation. A bunch of brainless fucks like bumbling our way through the algorithm doing
Hey, man, I'm not Trump.
but it's a thing. It's like, how would you know? I ask myself that constantly. Like, how would you know what's real and what's not? And I don't, the thing that scares me the most is I don't have an answer for that. I don't know. But then again, it's also liberating too, because it's like, okay, in the course of not knowing, maybe you're like, okay, well, I guess I don't know. I'm just going to enjoy the ride.
Yeah, I was just going to say, is it scary though? Because maybe reality bites.
Yeah, no, you're right. Like, in fact, if some kind of omnipotent species went to the trouble of developing this massive simulation system, this hugely complex supercomputer kind of system, maybe we're better off being here than there. That maybe their life sucks so much that this is heaven, even if it's a little bit uncomfortable.
So, assuming that we have a biological manifestation in said reality,
I would never assume that.
Yeah. Like who or what would be maintaining it? I don't know. Well, if it were a simulation though, like, and we didn't have some kind of corporeal existence, like what would be the interface?
Well, wait. So if we're NPCs, you're saying? Like,
no, I'm saying like if we're real things,
yeah,
in whatever form in a simulation, how are we interfaced to it if we're not corporeal, biological in nature?
Well, I wouldn't know, because it's like maybe they're not like us. What it could be, like some amorphous blob or something like that, with like a little eye on a stalk stick dangling on their head or something. Who's to say? It's simultaneously terrifying and I guess, I don't know, enjoyable. Yeah. I don't know. It like, thinking about it, it's an interesting exercise, but I don't know that we could ever know one way or the other. But I, for one, would put a lot more weight behind the simulation theory than like the God theory. Although maybe they're one and the same.
Yeah,
The
I would
God
buy
theory
that.
is just kind of like a more simplified version of the simulation theory. Um, like maybe everybody's known all along.
Well, it's probably just a plant, like for people that really got close to figuring it out. And
Oh man, ooh, that is ooh a twist.
yeah, it basically just tricks you into buying any old bullshit with no evidence whatsoever
Mm-hmm.
and writing it off as, oh, that's God's plan, whatever.
Well, yeah, spinning your wheels for the rest of your gameplay, so that you don't discover how things work. That that's an interesting, very interesting idea, huh? It's like monkey dust.
Okay, what?
Monkey dust. Like monkeys, like throw dust up, dirt and stuff to distract their opponents.
Oh, ninjas too.
Yeah, that they do. Yes. But then again, real ninjas use lasers. I paid a bunch of money for that bumper sticker back in the day. Oh man. Yeah, oh man. This is man, I feel like there's so many more things. I'd like to hear what other people have to say thinking about this. Like, uh, share your thoughts down in the comment section. Um, I, you know, I've probably thought about a lot of those thoughts, whatever they are, and I probably have a counter for them.
I mean, in a sense, it is kind of tautological. Like, no matter what, you can always come up with a what if.
Yeah.
You know, like an unanswerable question in response to somebody that manages to come up with an answer, you know?
No, you're right. But then again, we don't know what reality is. We don't know. Well, prove to me that
What if
I'm
reality
alive.
is subjective? Like,
Well,
what if it is reality just because it is?
it could be, but prove to me that I'm real.
And if you're
You know,
real, but in a simulation, are you not still real? Even if
that
your consciousness is experiencing the simulation, you're still
that
real.
that is a really good point. Like maybe the data alone is enough.
Yeah, I mean, like no matter what, like we are real.
Yeah.
Just because reality is essentially relative.
Well, it comes back down to the like inside looking out kind of thing. Like all we have at our disposal, our tools, our toolbox is here. So our only way of analyzing things and determining stuff is what we have here in this system, be it quote unquote reality or a simulation. And I don't know that there's really any reason to distinguish between the two. Um, yeah. Oh man. Oh, okay. I'm feeling a little mind blown at the moment.
Yeah, it's probably enough metaphysics for 1 hour roughly.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, maybe we should drop acid one time and do this video again.
Do like a 6 hour episode.
Oh man. Exactly.
Whoa, there's a pink elephant in the room, dude.
The walls are breathing, man. uh, well, I would hope that we've at least brought up some really thought-provoking points to get people thinking about things and exploring things. And I don't know, maybe we've leveled up. Maybe we're like 10th tier at this point. Who knows? I mean, who's to say? How could you calculate that? Yeah. Man. Whoa. Ah.
Huh. Well, thanks for deep sink diving with us into simulation theory, where nothing ever glitches.
Now I'm thinking about his max headroom.
Drink coconut porter.
Yeah, I could probably throw in like a couple seconds of that for those who don't know, because that was like an 80s thing. Hopefully it doesn't bring up any copyright issues, but you can look it up too. You can just go to YouTube and look up max headroom, and yeah. Yeah, thanks for deep sink diving with us. There's going to be some kind of metaphysical, or I don't know, not necessarily spooky, but matrixy song maybe coming in, playing, possibly.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We'll see. Mm.
All right. Well, have a good night, and don't forget to turn your simulation off.